Good afternoon, late afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. My name is Debbie Stroman, and I am very, very excited to be with you for the fall panel, the fall career panel, sponsored by NCDS. I'm joined by 4 outstanding professionals, but I want to start off by telling you a bit about myself. I do work at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and the University of Virginia, where I'm a faculty member and administrator. My love of data is not only born of my academic training, but also my love for sports. I played basketball at the University of Virginia, and in my academic years, I decided to host a basketball analytics summit, and I've done that for the past 8 years now. And in fact, tomorrow will be my last one. If you're interested, basketballanalyticssummit.com. But I'd like to introduce an outstanding group of panelists. I'm honored to be your moderator for this event. They are very, very accomplished and kind, and they're here to share their insights and their life lessons in terms of how and why they got to where they are today. So to set the stage for the conversation, I'd like to ask the panelists, each one, to begin by sharing their company, their current role, and what they wanted to be growing up. And I'll start off with Peter Bequero. Peter?
Thank you, Dr. Starman, for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here on this panel and hear these wonderful questions. I'm currently a director of AI and machine learning at Alex Partners. We're a management consulting company. We are very well known for doing turnarounds of distressed companies, and they've started a new digital practice a few years ago. They're trying to grow into that space to really help companies leverage the benefits of Gen AI and machine learning to do cost takeouts or grow revenue or increase margin. And it's pretty far from what I thought I was going to be growing up. I was very certain when I was 10 years old that I was going to be a doctor astronaut. So that didn't work out the way I thought it would, but I have to say I'm incredibly happy in the way that my career has developed, and I consider myself very fortunate.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Suparna Goswami.
Thank you so much for the very kind introduction, Dr. Stroman. So I'm Suparna Goswami, and I am currently a senior research scientist at RENC, or the Renaissance Computing Institute, which is affiliated to UNC Chapel Hill. And so what did I, currently I work in the field of biomedical research or data science in the context of biomedical concepts in the domain of biomedical research. And what did I want to become growing up? Again, like Peter, I also wanted to become a doctor. And I did become a doctor, only of a different kind. But however, when I started this job in RENC like a few months ago, I called up and told my dad, who was also very interested in me becoming a doctor, that, Dad, this is the nearest I will come to becoming a medical doctor now that I am working day and night with biomedical concepts. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you. Nothing like a bit of pressure from the parents, right?
Yeah.
Reiko Nakashima.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Stroman. This is Reiko Nakashima. I'm a director of computational biology in machine learning and computational sciences group at Pfizer. I built and developed computational methods to analyze high throughput DNA or RNA sequencing data. And when I was younger, I wanted to actually be a nurse because I think I remember we visited grandma in a hospital, in a community hospital at the time. And then the nurse there was the most kindest professional actually I've ever met at the time. So that was my dream. And I actually studied nursing in college. But when I was pursuing a senior thesis, I was first exposed to data science, and then actually decided to go to that direction in my career. So that's where I am now.
Thank you. All right, let's see if we're going to continue this theme with the medical connection. Esteban Torres.
Okay, so don't mean to disappoint, but Dr. Stroman, so hi everyone, my name is Esteban Torres. I'm currently a senior financial analyst here at Bank of America. I sit here in Charlotte, North Carolina. My responsibilities at Bank of America is to report out all the different impacts, financial impacts, through the buildings that Bank of America owns and leases from Illinois to Nevada. There's about 100 properties. And then I also pull all of the tactics that the bank is going to do on all of the buildings that the bank owns. So 7,600 properties, either entering floors and exiting floors, entering new buildings, and so on. As a kid growing up, what did I want to be? I always remember saying I wanted to be a dentist. So I'm not sure why, but I was really obsessed with like teeth and a nice smile. So I was like, oh, I want to make people smile all the time. So I make people smile just in a different way. So usually through jokes or panels or things like that. So I got close, but yeah, no dentist. So
No, I love it. I love the connection. So it's not loud, but it is certainly enough for me to pay attention. I've been hearing in the media about people saying that you don't need to go to college. You don't need to get a degree. I am very, very biased. I do believe in higher education. So I'd like to talk to you all and have you share about your backgrounds and the why. And I want to start off with Dr. Suparna. Why the PhD?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So to give you a little bit of background, and I like to, proudly claim this. So I have lived and worked in 5 different countries. I mean, I was born and raised in India, where I did my bachelor's and master's study. And after that, I moved to Singapore after having worked for a couple of years as a technology consultant. The opportunity presented to continue on or further my interest in technology, information systems in particular, by doing a PhD. And in Singapore, the National University of Singapore has an excellent graduate program in information systems. So it was like there was the opportunity, there was the scope, and the both aligned, and I ended up doing the PhD. And what I really learned, I mean, not just during my graduate studies, but also while I was doing my bachelor's and master's, and a skill that I value very much is going to college not just teaches you things, but it teaches you how to learn, like a self-learning spirit. And I think that's very important. So the exposure that you have talking to people who are there as your mentors, as your teachers and guides, being exposed to research, being exposed to the world of research publications, trying to learn and constantly updating yourself with skills, I think that is particularly valuable. And I mean, it's not just about the degree or the 4-year degree program and what you end up, but like it's a lifelong learning, like an ethic of learning that is instilled by going to college. And I believe that's a big, and for me that, out of my, right now, I am doing things which are related, but not really exactly in the field of my graduate study. But for me, the practice or habit of learning is that was instilled during my graduate studies is something that I value a lot.
Thank you. I definitely agree with you there. So for the panelists, are you thinking about a doctorate degree, a PhD? Are you thinking about more education? And if not, that's okay, but tell us why you selected the school that you did. Why did you decide to go and get higher education? Let's start off with Rekha.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I was interested I'm currently doing research in interdisciplinary area, which is computational biology. So I need a expertise in, of course, molecular biology, statistics to deal with big data to distinguish, for example, association and correlation against the causal, inference. And so detailed expertise in that area, as well as computer science. So I wanted to study systematically, and then I search the program so that I can study that type of subjects. And I also want to emphasize the importance of the study area that faculty members of your university of your interest that they are doing, and they are aligned with your interest, or is there any potential mentors you are interested in, and whether or not it's a little bit more detailed question, but if the potential mentor or lab have a certain criteria for PhD students to measure the successful PhD programs, for example, the number of publications within a certain number of years. So those are all small things, but of course, the most important thing is that you are interested in that area to study, to commit your effort and money, right? For 4 to 5 years, it's sometimes 6 years it might take. So you have to choose. You want to choose the area you are interested in. You like to commit that your resources, and then also those aspect of the faculty members on the department and the lab.
Thank you. Definitely agree that it starts with having a passion for a field, because it can wear you down. Esteban.
Yeah, great question. Why did I choose the university that I picked, the University of North Carolina at Charlotte? Well, it was in my backyard. So I grew up in Charlotte for 16 years, and I just always had a passion to going to a larger university. Being the first in my family to go study at a university was, one, daunting enough. So I wanted to pick something so close to home. So if I needed to cry to my mom, I could do that. And I do. Well, I did. But I studied systems engineering. I didn't think I would find that as my path. I first did community college before transitioning to UNC Charlotte. But yeah, systems engineering just made sense to me. I love math. I love numbers. I like solving problems using math. And it just became like a natural fit. So a lot of what Rico was saying about, finding your mentors, finding your professors that are able to guide you. I was able to leverage my professors and mentors and sponsors along the way that were able to guide me and like, hey, you're really good at talking to people. You're really good at numbers. I think this is a path for you. How did I end up at Bank of America? That was through doing an internship and just talking to the right people and, them leading me my way. I'm a huge proponent of higher education being a stepping stone to open doors for opportunities. Again, Bank of America is not, you don't have to have a degree to get an opportunity here in the corporate space, but it does help. When I'm talking to undergraduate students about them studying data science, them studying finance, accounting, engineering, I was like, oh, that's great. That's exciting. I also asked them, how do you get back to the community and so forth. But the degree helps. It helps open the conversation. It helps me relate and see that they're able to push themselves mentally, academically, and learn new things. So yeah, I would say definitely a firm believer in higher education. If I could have all my younger siblings pursue higher education, I would. And then your other question of if I'm interested in pursuing higher education myself, if the bank would pay the whole thing, yeah, absolutely. Currently, I purchased my dream car, so I'm waiting to pay that off first before I decide to dive into getting a higher education MBA at a top Ivy League school. But that's a pretty penny, so that has to wait a little bit. But yeah, of course, I am interested in expanding myself. I am actually interested in doing more analytics, so a master's in either systems engineering or data science, augmented reality, spatial computing. That's the route that I'm wanting to pivot into. So yeah.
Thank you. Peter.
Wonderful. Well, I did my undergraduate at the University of Florida. I was born and raised in Florida, so it just made a lot of sense for me to go there. And after I shifted from pre-med, I made the very wise career choice of majoring in philosophy. So as I was coming up on graduation, I realized, this probably won't take me down the path that I want to go. And so I got a master's in information systems. And that actually really kicked off my passion for data and data engineering and data science. I think that there is actually a lot of overlap between data science and philosophy. I love solving problems. I love answering questions, right? And that's what I feel we do, and we do it very, very well. That was more years ago than I care to admit, but very recently I got my MBA actually from Kellogg at Northwestern, and that was a terrific experience. And going back to your question about, do we still need formal education? I agree that it's very important to cultivate that love of learning. I personally will continue to collect graduate degrees because I really enjoy them. But the really important aspect about education is also the networking, the people that you meet and you connect with. And, you go through these intense programs and you form these lifelong bonds. And then you have these connections, across the country and in multiple industries, and everyone's willing to help each other. So I think that that's a really important and valuable benefit to education as well.
Thank you. So we have a wide range of careers here represented. So I'm going to encourage the audience to take out a writing instrument or jump on your computer to take some notes, because I would like for them to share particular data science tools that you're using, because there's a lot of software, there's a lot of resources out there, and I'd love you to share maybe one or two. Let's go around the horn. And how about if we start with Esteban?
Yeah, for sure. So again, I study systems engineering, so not exactly computer science or that path, but my day-to-day, I use a lot of SQL. I use SQL as like my main coding language. Funny enough, I almost failed my art class in undergrad, so that played out funnily. So I use SQL at my current day-to-day. I use Power Query all the time, Excel. I live in it, breathe in it. I love Excel. And then Tableau. Tableau is also one of the dashboards that we use. We use that to create dashboards and analyze our data that we get through our database. So yeah, that's what I currently use at the bank.
Thank you. Peter.
Well, being a consulting service, we try to be as agnostic as possible. So we come up to speed on whatever our clients are using. And that really runs the gamut. We've really seen everything, right? So Alteryx is pretty popular. Palantir is also really popular for data ingestion and building pipelines. But within the firm, we've started to build a data ingestion and profiling platform, and that's all in Azure, right? And so we're using Azure Databricks, we're using embedded Azure Power BI, we're using the Azure OpenAI modules. So yeah, we tend to be a pretty heavy Azure shop, a lot of Python language, a lot of Spark. And I would really be remiss if I didn't say I worked at SAS for 7 years before I joined Alex Partners. So I'm obviously very comfortable and very familiar with the SAS tool set as well.
Thank you. Dr. Goswami.
Yeah, I mean, I would rehash what Esteban has already said. So we use a lot of queries. My work currently is also like in the, domain of integrating knowledge graphs and semantic ontologies, biomedical ontologies, and so on. So we are currently we use knowledge graphs and ontologies or draw upon from them. And of course, the power of Excel cannot be understated or overstated. And in addition, for scripting, we use Python to write scripts and so on. So these are the tools that we use on a regular basis.
Thank you. And Reiko.
Yeah, so depending on the subject we are working on, I used to use SAS a lot. SAS was my right hand, like I could do anything with SAS, but nowadays I totally don't use SAS. Switching from statistical role to computational role, I more increasingly use Python, RStudio, and also Jupyter Notebook as a platform to run Python, and also we use more increasingly Nextflow workflow language to have a reproducible automated workflow to do a data analysis from end to end, so that we can have automatically get a report once we input the raw data. And that is an important tool to maintain reproducibility and visibility. Also, it's not the tool itself, but GitHub is another important platform. We share codes, version control our programs, and then collaborate on GitHub. And whenever we need to update the version of an automatic computational pipeline, we're gonna have more than one reviewer to approve the code updates and to validate what we changed. And that is an important platform. And another thing is to use Docker Singularity to, again, version control all the software we use. There are constant update of lots of different tools. So there's incompatibility, compatibility. And then depending on the version of the software, the result slightly changes. So we really have to lock down the version of the software we use by Dockerizing those software. And also, it's not tool per se, but we use the high performance computing environment to do a scalable analysis, which is called HPC, as well as cloud-based computational environment like AWS or Google Cloud to scale up the data analysis. So these are the things, the platforms and tools or programming languages I usually use.
Thank you. Wow. That was a wealth of knowledge. I hope people were able to jot down some of the tools that they need to investigate. And especially if you are on a college campus, if you are enrolled, a lot of this software is free to you as a college student. So try to take advantage of that and don't be afraid to ask questions. I want to pivot now and talk about hard skills versus soft skills. Hard skills, those are the skills that we use to perform a task. It might be financial planning tools. It might be Microsoft Office. It might be project management. And then soft skills, we're talking about your personality, as in how you show up in the room. So that's timekeeping, it's communication skills, it's leadership skills, it's your motivation. And so I want to ask the panelists, if we could start off talking about hard skills. What should applicants be able to include on their resume in order to be competitive in today's market? Let's focus on hard skills first. And I want to start off with Reiko.
Yeah, hard skill. That's really a great question on the needs. Depends again on the job role description. You can also find relevant hard skills according to the job description. But in my area, I try to be generalized as possible. In my area, data science, usually in biology area, of course, good programming skills. Like I said, the Python, R, or Java, even C++, and also basic. I like to see a candidate to have some type of basic statistical knowledge to distinguish, for example, correlation and causation, or find the confounding factor. Is there any selection bias of your data to begin with? And then also definition, what is the definition of p-value? That kind of very, very basic statistical skill knowledge to analyze, interpret the data, and then think about the data, source of the data coming, where does it coming from? Is there any selection bias or not? So that type of skill I would like to see. And another one is, I know I list a lot, but visualization skill to communicate with the stakeholders, support, collaborators, or your customers. So you want to be flexible with using nice packages or interactive visualization tool, or shiny up whenever necessarily. Those are, I think, fundamental skills generally in data science, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Peter.
Yeah, I think that that's all absolutely spot on. In the consulting space, I would say a really important hard skill to have is going to be being able to do case studies, right? So understanding how to do complex analysis, root cause analysis, and being able to demonstrate the ability to structure the analysis and present it in a way that is, intelligible and easily received by your audience. Because there are times when we're not delivering the best of news, right? And I guess that goes into the soft skills a little bit as well. But yeah, being able to break down a problem into its component parts, and being able to address each part. And then very specifically, I would say having information presentation skills. So a lot of people would, for that, it's usually Power BI or Tableau or even Excel pivot tables. But I would include PowerPoint in that as well. And there's a trend where we're moving away from static PowerPoint decks and more to web mockups in Figma, so that you can track how people are actually interacting with the information that you're presenting. And you can update it. It's not just a stale deck that gets circulated around. So those would be the hard skills that I would look for.
Thank you. Presentation is very, very important. Dr. Goswami.
Yeah, so I think Dr. Nakashima already covered the ones that I thought I would talk about. One is like acquire a programming skills, even if it is just one language, maybe it's Python at the moment or Java, be good at one programming language. That's very, very important. Again, if you know one, it's easier to learn like another one. And at the same time for get some statistics background that cannot be underplayed. I mean, what is a regression model? What is causation, like covariance and so on? So just familiarize yourself with these basic concepts. I think these are, in my opinion, and in addition to what Peter also mentioned, like presentation skills and so on. But I mean, these are the two most important hard skills, I would say people should acquire.
Esteban?
Yeah, I think the other panelists kind of hit the nail on the head on all the different hard skills that a candidate should have. I mean, working for a financial service industry like at Bank of America, I'd say some hard skills that would be great to have: Excel knowledge, like Peter mentioned, being able to create pivot tables, analysis, but also understand like why those changes are happening. So, if you've ever played around in data sets or did like some type of data competition, bringing that up, what was the what or the how of why you did what you did, being able to articulate those things is really good hard skill. Also, we mentioned a little bit of like data visualization. That'd be very helpful as well. So you can mention Tableau, you can mention other like tools that you've used. Having is great. Ultrax, how you've automated processes, that's obviously very helpful. You can also mention Outlook too. So if you're a person who schedules meetings, that shows that one, you're organized, you have, your school's calendars or schedules in order. That also shows that you're, well organized and able to meet deadlines and time constraints. So just another hard skill that'd be ideal to have in any industry, I would believe.
No, that's great. In fact, it makes me think of Zoom knowledge. That is really big now. And if it's not Zoom, it's WebEx and all the other platforms. Another one that I'll mention, which I believe is really, really important today, is languages. Languages. If you have another language that you speak or write, please don't hide that from your resume. That is very, very important in today's environment. So let's talk about soft skills now. Some research says actually that soft skills are more important than our hard skills. And so I want to ask our panelists, tell us some soft skills or some experiences that you've had that will be helpful to our audience today. And I want to start off with Esteban.
Good. Okay, my favorite. So I believe I got my job through my soft skills. Just because I had like I said, actually didn't know any SQL other than the very small R coding language I had. I mean, I was proficient in Excel, but the soft skills of being able to reach out to my now manager, who was the hiring manager at the time, and just saying, hey, can I have a 15-minute chat with you to talk about your space and see what you're currently hiring for? I see you have an open rec. And that was just a soft skill of, am I confident enough to talk to this person who I don't know at all, and just basically give them a sales pitch. And I always love to say, like, cockiness, not cockiness. Sorry, confidence, not cockiness. And just owning what you know. That's very valuable to have, because it's very, I think, challenging to teach someone that they should be confident knowing what they know, because they know it better than anybody else. So I would say that's a soft skill that I love seeing from undergraduate young professionals and so on, when they just say, hey, I've worked on this, I give back to the community in this way, and I love the passion that your company has doing this, giving back, da da da. I'm like, wow, this person has done their research, they're super excited, they're owning the room, they have this gravitas about them. How can I find someone that can make this happen? And that is all soft skills, I would say. Again, we can teach you everything you need to know for SQL, Power Query, Ultrax, Tableau, Excel, Pivot, like anything you need. It's just, do you have the confidence in yourself that you think you can sit in the floor that we sit? I mean, I'm no special than anyone else on this audience. I love to meet other people that know, like, oh yeah, I can see myself there. I'm excited. I'm gonna go for it. And what's the worst we're gonna say? No. I'm like, okay, it's not a no. It's a no now, but it's maybe just maybe later. So yeah,
Thank
that's
you. Dr. Goswami, soft skills.
Yeah, this is very interesting. And one thing I feel, and I also understand, for a young graduate, young professional, it takes time to develop some of this, especially the soft skills. But something that is very important is know your audience. So like, for the same, you might be presenting the same information, the same content to different stakeholders in a project, in a multi-institutional, multi-organizational project. So know who your audience is and kind of tailor your presentation, the story that you are telling, depending on who the audience is. So for some people, some stakeholders, you need to present, give a more detailed, maybe technical overview of things. At other places, you just tell like a story that everyone is able to relate to, everyone is able to understand. So I think like adapting your communication depending on who you are presenting to is a very important skill to have, especially in the field that where I work in. We do lots of government funded projects, like where the funding agency is NIH, and we are constantly having meetings with NIH, with other stakeholders, other organizations, with the actual researchers, like, the medical professionals or the social science researchers. And like just telling them the same thing, conveying the same message needs completely different different points that need to be highlighted. So I think that's an important skill anyone should acquire, like who are you presenting to, and adapt your presentation or adapt your whatever content you are presenting, like the story that you're telling, depending on the audience.
Thank you. Peter.
Yeah, I have to agree with Esteban and build on what he said. I got my job at Alex Partners through someone who doesn't even sit in the digital practice. He doesn't understand what I do, but he was in my MBA program and he liked working with me. And so he referred me into the firm. And I went through 2 different personality tests in the interview process. So cultural fit is really, really, really important. And I really like the confidence, not cockiness saying as well. I think that's spot on. I think there's another side to confidence that often gets overlooked, and that's being confident enough to ask questions, right? We come in as consultants, and oftentimes people will expect us to come charging in and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But the approach I like to take is, here's the proposed path that we want to take. Here's why we think it's right. What do you think about this? Are there pitfalls that we're missing? and then you get into the nuances of what their organization is doing, what their goals are, and you can ask the quote unquote dumb questions. Like, that's okay, right? Because there will be times when you ask that question and the people across the table from you have that same question, but they're too shy to ask it, right? So having the confidence to ask that question is vital. And finally, I would say people will forget the SQL report you put together, the Power BI dashboard you created, but they will always remember what it was like working with you, right? They will always be like, I liked going to lunch with that guy, or when we were under the wire, like he had a great attitude, and she was always upbeat and willing to help, even if it was out of her depth. So that kind of the way you carry yourself, the way that you come in and are part of a team, that's incredibly important.
So true. Thank you for that. Reiko, soft skills.
Yeah, I totally agree with that idea as well, because a hiring manager always need to ask in the end whether or not we want to work with that candidate, right? So it's an overall decision, including technology, hard skills, but soft skills really plays a lot to make a final decision whether or not, So people already talked about the communication skills, and also second that we want to have the candidate to have an excellent communication skill, to know the users, collaborators, customers' need, and also we need to communicate and present our result finding clearly and show the limitation of our methods or data analysis in the end. So we need to be crystal clear to communicate what can be possible, what cannot be possible as well. And or also that the deadline, we need to be clear about the timeline, expectation, sort of things, and to be in the same page. And also I would like to say that we also need to continuously learn. I think Dr. Goswami talked about earlier that we keep learning things because the technology develops so quickly, and then new technologies are coming in and out in a rapidly moving in this area of the study. And then so we need to gain new knowledge, and we have to adapt the new technology. For example, I also have to initiate the project, not limited to, but including, for example, gene therapy or gene editing area where I haven't studied before, and I have to analyze that type of data and then ask the right questions. Right, so I have to read, I want to know as well. I needed to read lots of articles in that area, and need to interpret the findings and also ask next appropriate question, and then have a good hypothesis to test next. To do so, I think we have to actually keep learning new things and then relevant to your studies.
Thank you for that. In fact, that's the transition that I want to make at this time. I'm a firm believer that practice does not make perfect. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And so I want to have our panelists speak on, what are you working on? What are you working on to be better at over the past 3 years? What are you most proud of? Talk a little bit about your vulnerability. What have you done to be a better professional? And how about if we start with Dr. Goswami?
Well, to talk about my vulnerabilities. So, given my background, as I mentioned, I have worked, I have moved primarily for family reasons to different places. And each time I had to kind of reinvent myself. And I moved to the US not quite 4 years back. And there were issues with, like not having the work authorization permit. So I was out of the workforce for a couple of years. And that made me nervous. Like, will I be able to get back? I mean, how big a barrier will a potential employer consider this to me? So this is a vulnerability, and I am glad to be back, and I am enjoying my role. But during this phase when I was actually not working, again, I kept learning. I picked up some skills on Python, which I had never done before. I kept myself abreast with the technology. And also in my current role, like, as I mentioned, I worked in information systems research, previously primarily on a academic track. And now I am working more in the domain of biomedical research, or data science for biomedical domain. So it is really constantly learning new things, such as, what is important, how does biomedical research differ or vary from other research domains? Like, what is important, what is a priority for biomedical researchers, and how are we as a group able to address, that is a part of my work, able to address the concerns of this group, or able to kind of tell a story that would appeal to the researchers. So, I mean, what we are trying to do is get researchers to share their data and use that, not the data, it's a federated system, and use that information from the data, like the data dictionaries, to create semantic search, to curate knowledge graphs, and, in order to enable knowledge recreation or knowledge generation from existing data. So we are really talking to very different stakeholders who have completely different interests and completely different motivators. So for me, it was really a deep dive into a different world. And I constantly, like Professor Dr. Nakashima mentioned, that, reading up, getting familiarized with the terminology in that domain, so that when I am in a meeting talking to people, I am able to use the right language. So these were certain things that I keep on doing, or I kept on doing.
Thank you. Definitely an evolution. Peter?
Yeah, so it's hard for me not to spend most of my day in Outlook and PowerPoint, right? So I make a very conscious effort. I try to keep my hands on the keyboard and continue to program. I try to learn new platforms as they come out. I'm really excited about leveraging, some new Gen AI technology. I think that there's going to be a lot of benefit that comes out of that. And I also think it's very important for me personally that I'm not asking, anyone that I'm working with to do something that I wouldn't be able to do myself, right? So I think that that's incredibly important as a mentor and a leader, to have an understanding of some of the challenges that people come up against in working with this technology, and it helps set realistic timelines, and also set realistic expectations on what can be delivered. So that's my focus area.
Thank you. And Esteban?
Yeah, I would say a little vulnerability moment, if that's okay. Growth, at least for me in the past 3 years, has been being able to speak to a therapist. My employer luckily offers, multiple sessions for free per issue. And, talking to another professional when I feel like I'm in a dark place has been extremely beneficial for me, as someone who's very type A, has to have everything right, no issues. And, sometimes you run into walls, and talking to someone that's not a loved one or a family member or coworker, and just a non-biased individual, that's been a big strength for me to own and publicly speak and say, hey, like, sometimes you need to talk to a therapist, a licensed professional that can, walk you back and tell you, hey, you're doing a great job. You've grown so much. Other things that I've done, be able to I've raised my hand a lot for things that I've never done before, similar to the Tableau dashboard that we had created, and we've been nominated for a world award that we're presenting tomorrow. I actually just had done some training on my own, and I was like, oh, it would be really cool to work on like this new project that we're about to kick off. So I was like, hey, can I go ahead and do this? And my manager was like, yeah, sure, if you have capacity, go for it. And now it's blossomed to this awesome thing. And that was just within a year. So yeah, don't be afraid to raise your hand. Seeing a therapist is totally fine. And the other thing I like to mention, at least for my own growth, don't forget where you come from. I mean, like I mentioned earlier on, I'm first in my family to go to college. I'm second oldest of six. I very frequently go back to my alma mater, UNC Charlotte, talk to undergraduate students, tell them how they can get careers in corporate America. Like I am, like I mentioned again before, I'm no better than anyone else on this call, but anyone in the world. I love to remind young professionals and people of color, like, hey, you can do it. I'm no special just because I'm gay, Hispanic, first generation college graduate engineer. Like, you can do it too. And I hope I can remove some hurdles or those self doubts for people. So don't forget where you come from. And then, yeah, help out a nonprofit. So I'm on a nonprofit here in Charlotte that's global, the Association of Latino Professionals for America, where we help other people of color, find jobs in corporate America. I do other things in the bank, but that is like my purpose. I was brought on this earth, I think, to make other people's lives easier. And I think the best way I do that is through education and encouragement, leadership. But yeah, it's at least filled my cup. My mom always says you can't fill your cup up if it's empty. You can't fill other people's cup up if yours is empty. So that's where the therapy piece comes in. But also I gotta give the knowledge that I have to other people. So that's why I'm on this panel. But I do multiple engagements like this because, yeah, I mean, if I could have talked to young Esteban in the past, he'd be crying, I'd be crying, but there'd be so much like beauty that comes out of that. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you for that. You make me think of being a giver versus a taker. And I think all humans are takers, but if we can be more intentional in the giving that we do, so you don't have to wait until you're a college professor or working at a major corporation or nonprofit. Give back to your high school. A lot of people would love to see how you're doing now. And that's a sense of that perfect practice, because you will be called on as you move into additional leadership roles to speak to a college classroom or to speak to your peers. And so you can always lean on the practice that you had by talking to high schoolers as well. Let's talk about how do we stand out? It's a very, very competitive world, especially for those wonderful jobs. And so there's no doubt that we need exposure. That is very, very important in this. So I want to ask the panel, what did you do to stand out? Or what do you recommend for young professionals? How should they stand out? And Let's start with Esteban. Let's come right back.
Yeah, sure. So how do you stand out? Quick funny story, not funny story, but I applied for 200 roles that internship that I was trying to get into my internship at the bank. And I interviewed, thought I did great, self-doubted myself at the end, and my recruiter called me and said I wasn't selected. So I cried, called my mom. And the feedback I got from the recruiter was, hey, own you, be confident. If you didn't doubt yourself and your degree and where you're at, she's like, you were a top pick, but you doubted yourself multiple times talking to people. So don't do that. It's like, okay, took that to heart. Another interview that I had later that week for an engineering firm. I was like, okay, I'm walking in really confident, friendly, polite. And next thing you know, I ended up getting that offer. So if I could have, I ended up picking the bank either way because I was runner up. But I would say just like own it, like be you, be authentic, be true. You see I'm wearing my pride pin, talking about being openly LGBTQ plus here at work. Just, you got to be you. Like there's so many people that come in and say, hi, Esteban, I'm studying finance. I want to work at the bank. I love that for you. Tell me, how do you get back to the community? Do you volunteer? What do you like? Do you play video games? Do you into augmented reality, virtual reality? Do you play video games? You like iPhones? I love iPhones. I got the new one. I got the new Apple Watch. Come to these interviews, and when you're talking to people, mentors, you want to get a coffee chat, just be real. Like I love talking to people that are okay with being vulnerable and saying, hey, like I journal too, and I have to write down everything I do. Oh, cool, you'd be a great fit here. You can keep track of what you do, and I could teach you, I can mentor, I can find the right people. But if you come at me, at least like a robot, I just find that more challenging. Some roles you'd be a great fit for. I mean, some of my peers are like that, but they're doing great. They're thriving. So it's more like,
It's about building connections for sure.
that's it. That's it.
Absolutely. Reiko?
Yeah, absolutely. That is really great to build the connection rapport with the group or future colleagues, and then also mention about the relevance to the job description you are looking at. Absolutely, I applied for example to, if I have had applied to, for example, imaging analyst. Although I don't have any imaging analysis background, I would have failed to get that position. So I always, in general, recommend people to, in advance, search for the job descriptions or roles that are relevant to your interest, and then just, keep track of the basic qualifications, the trend of those requirements, and then try to develop and learn the demands in the area of your interest. So certainly when I receive, for example, lots of resumes, the candidate or resume that we want to focus on tailored towards the specific job descriptions we have. Otherwise, I think it's easy for us to, know the resume was recycled, unfortunately. So I would be very, very careful to tailor toward the specific job description and then role you are applying for. And also, probably, as Esteban mentioned, that if you have an internship experience, that would be really great to already know, and then build a network with the potential group you're applying for. So those things.
No, thank you for that. If you have the opportunity in the space you're in now, build those relationships. Dr. Goswami?
Yeah, I would, I completely agree with what Esteban and Dr. Nakashima mentioned. In addition, I would add, create a portfolio. So depending on the area that you're trying to get into in the data science, do some projects. Even if you have internships, great. Even if you don't have, create a portfolio of small projects. You can do anything, like you can take up, for example, and you are very familiar with it, Dr. Stroman, like if you are, you play soccer, just do a little data science project, think about what data can you collect, what you can analysis, and what story can you tell with that data, and have that in your resume, and it doesn't, the portfolio term might seem intimidating. It doesn't have to be. It could be just like a couple of slides. Have a GitHub repository where your portfolio is located, put that in your resume. So that's one thing that you can do. And again, as Dr. Nakashima mentioned, spend time in the application, go through read the job description, write the cover letter, also really kind of, you don't have to misstate anything, but really update your resume depending on what you want to highlight for that particular job that you are applying to. Don't send a generic resume for every application. It takes time, it takes effort. You cannot do it in 10, 15 minutes. It will take you a couple of hours to do it. But do that, because that really pays off, and that helps you getting at least a reply from from the application. Yeah, otherwise it just goes into an black hole in the internet and you never hear back. So yeah, these are two things that people should try to do.
Thank you. And Peter, how do you stand out?
I really like the advice of making a personal connection, right? I think that's also really important because interviews are two ways, right? As a candidate, you really need to be getting a sense of whether or not this is a culture that you are going to fit into, and whether or not this is a person that you want to work for. But I think in addition to that, and having a personalized resume, that's very good advice as well, is having thoughtful, well-researched follow-up questions. Coming in and asking kind of pre-canned questions isn't the best, right? So if you can do a little bit of research on the company that you're trying to go to and ask some questions either about the strategy or recent news articles that have come out about them, that could be really good, or even specifically about the role, right? So bringing your specific experience in a similar role to bear on that, you could ask how that compares.
Absolutely. So we are getting ready to go to taking some questions from the audience. And so as we go into that, we're going to do one more round with the panelists around mentoring. There is no doubt that we can have people who give us unconditional support, and whether that is through hard skills or soft skills, but they're there for us. And a mentorship can last for 2 weeks, it can last for 2 years or forever. And so if you all would just share a bit in terms of the data science world, how has mentoring worked for you? Have you been a mentor? How did you secure a mentor? Let's speak to that, and then we're going to move to questions from the audience. And we'll start off with Reiko.
So yeah, that's a great question. On that, I tried to initially over communicate with the mentee when especially they started the job. Try to have constant conversation with the progress and then goals. We want to share the deadline as well, our expectation, try to be clear when I'm in the office and when they're not in the office or work from home. All sort of communication I try to have. And also just people are talking that they be authentic. I try to talk about not everything, but things that happened in my private life, in my family, as well as also professional topics, to have a nice open communication between us. So mentoring, so in terms of the data science specifically, I always try to be open to anything. If I have any relevant seminar invitations, or just to send lots of not too much information hopefully, but all the information for the training, for the networking opportunities, for those data science related colleagues, and also try to connect with other data science related colleagues by individually sending a note and then connect between my previous colleague or existing colleague and a new mentee, new hire, for example. And so try not to micromanage, of course. They need to have autonomy and try to control what they want to do and then how they want to do. So I try not to over manage things, of course, but that's the usually in general the way I work with my mentee.
Thank you. Peter?
I mean, I try to think of every manager I've had as a mentor, right? I like to always think that I can learn something from the people I work for. And I'm always happy to, give any guidance and advice to anyone who asks for it. I'm hesitant to just offer it out of the blue just because of how it might be received. But if you form those interpersonal relationships, then that just kind of comes very naturally, the mentee-mentor relationship. So I think that's probably the best path if you're looking to be mentored by someone or to mentor someone.
Yeah. Esteban?
Yeah, I would say I have a few mentors for different things. So some I have for career development, some I have to like learn a skill, specifically more data analysis, data visualization. I have a teammate who she's a rock star, and I look to her as not just a mentor, but as a role model. And, I try and sit as close to her as I can, and I ask her questions. And, that doesn't have to mean like a formal meeting. I actually don't think I don't remember the last time I had a formal meeting with them. And I would just say, hey, I have this problem with this thing. Can I run it by you? Here's how I would go about it. How would you go about it? And then they would do the same to me, just like on the spot, on the floor. Which is pretty neat. And so find someone that you can bounce ideas off of each other so you can kind of learn from the pro, I like to think. And then I have another mentor. Officially, the bank has like this CFO mentoring program, and I leverage that. This amazing mentor that they're just so great. They're basically more like a father figure. I can, ask them questions on like, hey, if I wanted to join this space, how would I go about that? Or how could I do this and that? And, they teach me different things. So, just find someone that you can have, and that one's more formal. That is once a month we meet and we chat, and I give them progress updates, kind of like my therapist. But it's more professional growth and development and how I can grow. So, find you someone in both of those spaces. So, people want to help, want to talk. So, yeah.
And Dr. Goswami, mentoring.
Yeah, so I would talk more on being the mentor to mentees. And in particular, I would talk about some experience I had acting as a mentor. Before moving to the US, I lived and worked in Germany for more than a decade. And I was one of the few senior researchers, a person of color, a woman in a predominantly STEM field in a very, very German-speaking environment. So I think, and I decided there were some initiatives of getting women more interested or being able to serve role models as questions that women may have in terms of working in academia or working in a research domain. In a STEM field. And I decided that this is where I could really contribute to by answering their questions, by trying to placate any self-doubt that young women embarking on their own academic or research journey. And I did this by really showing them, serving as a role model, giving them suggestions, just empowering them, hopefully, to speak up and approach people, ask questions, not to be shy, and so on. So that was a role I did enjoy, and I had open doors. Just ask me any question, drop by to ask questions, and that was something I did as a mentor.
Thank you. I'll just add, please avoid hearing someone speak, looking at their work, and then just walking up as a stranger and say, will you be my mentor? That's not a good way to make that happen. Again, you need exposure. You need to ask questions informally and then see how it happens organically. And then the other thing that I'll recommend is that get to know your professors. Get to know your professors. Use office hours. Ask for 15 minutes. Get to know your professors. They can stay with you the rest of your life in terms of providing you coaching, mentorship, and possibly sponsorship. Let's go to the retro board. Let's hear what our audience has posted. Like for everybody to take a look at those beautiful colors that all mean something, right? There's lots of questions to ask. So I'm taking a look at them. And as you can see, there's little numbers, as in how many people would love to have that question answered. And I want to go to the first one under questions for all panelists. Share your opinion about the data science industry. These are some tough times. They mentioned layoffs. Oh, there's something blocking my question there, so I can't see that part. But let's go around. Lots of model building jobs. Talking about the influence of AI. So let's talk about the industry. And I'm going to start with Dr. Goswami.
So, yeah, interesting question. So as I mentioned, before starting my current role at Renzi, I was working at Meta as a researcher. And so in industry, of course, even though there have been layoffs, these are tough times, there is a heavy demand for data science because And data science works very hand in hand with product design, product development, understanding what your users, what your customers want. So I'm talking in this particular case, I'm talking about more about Meta, where data science really informed the development team on a very, very granular level, like what are the features people are using, where is the most engagement, and so on. So this and I believe that this is going to, as we have access to more and more data and the capability of analyzing that data, I think the importance of data science is only going to go up. Of course, there will be some ups and downs, as is natural, but yeah, definitely it is going to remain a very important part. And also, I wanted to highlight that it's not just in the business world, in the government sector. So currently I am working in, as I mentioned, in a sector where these projects are all funded by federal agencies. And NIH has a grand vision for making all the data that is generated, like there is billions of dollars of funding on research studies, and these research projects, research studies are generating huge volumes of data. And how can we leverage this data to learn quickly, to develop more, new treatment plans, innovative solutions to problems? And there is a huge scope of innovation, the huge scope of contributing, getting jobs in this domain. So it's not just in the business world, it's also in the public sector that data science will have a lot of importance and a lot of visibility going forward.
Thank you. Peter, I'd love for you to answer this question about the state of data science, but also I want to ask you about a question that's under Esteban, but I think you would have a good take on this in the sense of any advice for individuals without a formal education, a formal financial education. So if you could take those two, thanks.
Sure. I think the data science field will continue to transform. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, right? If you think about it, the purpose of data science is just to answer questions, right? And there will always be questions, and then people will always need skilled practitioners to answer those questions. The tools we use might be a little bit different, but I remember when I started my career, database administrators were all the rage, right? So relational databases was where it was at, and now everything is NoSQL cloud-based databases. So things change, the tool set changes, but the mindset should always stay the same. And I think if anything, we continue to evolve into more advanced capabilities as practitioners, right? So we can leverage AI and machine learning to do a lot of the tedious work that we were doing before around data engineering, and I even doing some really basic analysis as well, like semantic analysis of text data sets. So I'm not all that concerned about the data science field. There have been layoffs for sure. I think that's right sizing. The people I know that have been laid off have been able to land relatively quickly in another role. So and then for the formal education, I think the best thing that you can do is have a solid code repository that you can point to, a good GitHub repository, but also be prepared to speak in depth and in very detailed about some of the solutions that you've developed, right? So the credentialing that you get from a university is very valuable. It shows that you can show up to class, you can understand concepts, you can take tests, you can potentially work well with others, right? But at the end of the day, what we want to know is, can you do the job? And if you can't point to a formal degree or diploma, being able to point to real world artifacts or experience is just as valuable.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, having that entrepreneurial spirit and speaking to it. So I'm going to come to Reiko and Esteban about exactly what you do. there's some questions about what is systems engineering? What is biostatistics? So I'll start with you, Esteban. What is systems engineering? Could you speak to that in terms of it being in the financial services industry?
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Stroman, good question. So systems engineering is using mathematics to solve industry problems. It's basically industrial engineering, just more math-based and more process improvement-based. How do I apply that within financial services? I think people typically think I work at a financial center when I tell them I work at Bank of America in finance. I'm like, no, I actually manage the portfolio of all the buildings. So it's more, gosh, it's really just being comfortable with large sets of numbers. So millions, billions, being okay with, throwing in a select all and choose a table and just go crazy. So I think I really just leveraged my degree to say, hey, I'm comfortable with large sets of numbers. I can show them in a meaningful way that makes sense to what you're asking me. And then like Peter had mentioned, like people have questions all the time and they just want to know like, hey, how much does this cost? How much is this going to save me? Should we do this? And I need to quickly say, nope, that's not a good idea. And we do that through financial models and analysis and Excel and all that. But systems engineering is really just problem solving using math and being comfortable with, talking about it. So that's like the majority of my job. Can I not only present the numbers, but can I back it up through words and very concise? I'm obviously not that great at concising what I say, but a word fluffer. But yeah, that's basically systems engineering, and that's how you can apply it here at Bank of America.
Thank you. Translation. Reiko, how about your job? People are asking about biostats. How much biology are you doing versus coding and the different data science tools? So tell us a little bit more about data science in your field of biology.
Yeah, so the biostatistics is essentially the application of statistics in biological questions, and then it is increasingly merged with bioinformatics and then computational biology. So the fundamental skill set we have is in computational biology, in my role specifically, a little bit of biostatistics. It's not required, but it's really great to have. And also coding skills, and then domain knowledge in molecular biology. So all the mixture of those areas. Plus, I think I increasingly think the computational science, computer science area, how to better utilize CPU, how to multi-thread the job into multiple cores of CPU, or how to distinguish with GPU. Kind of a little bit actually new for me, but highly, highly important actually knowledge, fundamental skill to run huge data analysis using huge data. So it's a kind of, so day-to-day work. I personally analyze high throughput sequencing data. I previously a little bit talked about DNA sequencing, RNA sequencing, multiple, I think 20, 30 gigabytes of data is the input, and then it's binary formatted file. Usually I parse using Python or Python. And then if I need to run specific statistical model, R is better. I prefer to use R when I need to run regression or modeling. Although people use Python to do machine learning modeling, of course. So it's kind of process or cons of using either platform or programming language. So that's a kind of overview of the field.
Thank you. I appreciate the interest in people visiting your LinkedIn pages for our panelists. Dr. Goswami, academic world, corporate world, you've done both. And people are curious about what is RENCI? So can you speak to the differences, what you like, maybe something that might be a bit more uncomfortable, and tell us more about RENCI.
Okay. Yeah, so academic world, so just to put it in very short, so academic world is about, I was a researcher, a research group leader. It is about being more rigorous in what you do. You have times to plan the research project. You are not kind of driven, or the work that you do is not driven by an immediate business interest or business need. And at the end, often you are looking at publications and, of course, project deadlines to the funding agency that need to be met. It is also about constantly learning, which is also true in corporate world, but constantly learning, spending a lot of time reading up other people's research. So if you are the person who likes to read a lot, likes to constantly keep yourself updated in the research world, definitely academia is the place to be in. In industry, and for me that was the biggest difference, is the cadence in which you need to deliver is very different. Projects are much more fast paced. And I am talking about doing research in the industry, so there is a trade-off between rigor and timeliness in delivering your output. So projects are much fast-paced. You do not try to have as much time to do a meticulous planning of the project. So it's almost like you are constantly expected to deliver insights, deliver actionable guidelines, and so on. So I think the main difference really is you have a business objective in the industry, and you are trying, your work is kind of guided by that business objective. And often the work that you are doing is really very fast paced. At the same time, like in an academic world, you can follow what you want to do, answer a question that might be less in relevance to the rest of the world. But in the business world, the relevance, scalability of your work is more important. Both are extremely interesting, extremely meaningful. Yeah, that's the answer on that part of the question. And secondly, RENCI, and I'm very happy to be at RENCI, because RENCI really kind of works at the boundary of being very close to the academic world, but not quite in the academic world. So RENCI, or Renaissance Computing Institute, it is located in Chapel Hill. It is very closely affiliated with the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. We do a lot of the projects that we do at RENCI, and RENCI has like a huge portfolio of domains. Like there is earth data sciences, there is analytics, there is biomedical research. All of these projects, like they could have funding from the federal government funding agencies such as NIH or the NSF, but there is also a close collaborators from the industry. So we work closely with different kind of people, and so we are not quite guided by the requirements of an academic world, as in we are not always judged by our publication. There is no requirement to teach, which is if you are following an academic career path, you have to do these two things. In RENCI, one is free to publish, one is free to teach, but we are really guided by the expectations and deliverable requirements from the projects that we are working on. So that is the main difference.
That was an amazing overview of RENCI, such a wonderful company. And so we are running out of time, sadly, but I'm going to encourage everyone. I know this panel is very, very kind. You can connect with them on LinkedIn and let them know that you are here at the Fall Career Panel, and they will try their best to answer your question. They really will. I'd also like to recommend that if you're thinking about what company should I try to apply to work, think about that, your favorite companies, but then research their competitors. Your ideal company, your dream company, it might not be the right time for you, but the competitor, that other company that you had no idea existed, that might be the one. So don't forget to do really, really deep dive with your research on employment. So I want to close us out by asking one last question of our panel. The valuable lesson to speak to our audience tonight. In your career journey, what is that valuable lesson that you like to share with everyone? And I want to start with Esteban.
Okay, what's a valuable lesson I would say to the audience? Don't be afraid to cry. And, you're enough. I wish I heard that enough. I wish I told myself that enough. Um, you're going to get a lot of no's. It just takes, the cliche, it just takes one yes. But it's like, just every day say yes to yourself. Like, you are capable, you can learn it. Like, it might seem challenging today, but tomorrow you might have it. You might have that epiphany moment. And slow down, give yourself some grace. It's going to be okay. You don't have to have all the answers right now, but you're enough. You got this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Reiko?
Yeah, that's the lesson for myself as well. Don't underestimate the importance of networking. So there's in my company a rotational program for computer science major or other STEM major college graduates. So that's one way to be in a sort of internship or rotational program they call, to be connected with the employment of your interest. So start with that, and also any personal connections. You can just catch up with your friends or any people you know, and also communicate with your interest, and then your status, whether or not you're open to work or you're looking for a job or something like that. I really highly encourage to be connected with others, not for the purpose of finding a job, but for yourself as well, to maintain my also nice psychological status, to catch up with my friends and have a nice dinner with them, and sort of things I would highly recommend.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, be comfortable with change, right? Your best laid plans will probably not work out the way that you hope they do, but you will end up in places you probably never dreamed you would, right? I couldn't have planned my career path if I had tried. And so you just have to be really comfortable, with change. You have to be really comfortable with no, and you have to be ready to take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves. So have that confidence and go forth and conquer.
Thank you, Peter. Flexibility, adaptability, very important. Dr. Goswami.
Yeah, I really liked what Peter said. I mean, of course, what Rico and Esteban said as well. And to add on to that, flexibility and resilience. One is like be willing and ready to change as the situation demands, and resilience, because your career will not always be like like a curve going up or so on. There will be peaks and troughs. Be resilient enough to realize that that's the part of life, and you can overcome any disappointments, grab opportunities when they present themselves. So I think that's important. Dr. Stroman, you are muted.
Thank you. In my excitement, I know you all can't use the chat box or even unmute yourselves, but I'm hopeful that you are very, very grateful and thankful for this wonderful panel tonight. They shared a lot of gems, a lot of words of wisdom that will help you. Be encouraged. I always say to my students, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you on a favorable basis. Who knows you on a favorable basis? And I think that was part of the theme tonight. When we talk about building relationships, building quality relationships, being kind, how can you serve? How will you go the extra bit to learn a bit more about your field and the resources and technologies that are available to you? Thank you for joining us today. Please take the evaluation. It's posted on the screen there, and certainly join our talent pool for a chance to connect with our partners. Thanks again. Thank you for being here, and thank you again to our panel.
And this is Amanda Miller, Associate Director for the National Consortium for Data Science. Just a quick voiceover to thank all of our panelists and our incredible moderator, as well as our audience for putting out so many amazing questions on that Easy Retro board. You guys did an amazing job of staying engaged, but our panelists, I'm just giving you a huge hug and a huge round of applause and all the high fives for doing such a great job of being authentic and so transparent with your experiences and your tools and all of your resources and everything. It has just been amazing to listen to y'all this evening. We do want to invite all of you to attend our Data Bites series that is taking place not next month. It is Tuesday, December 5th. This is a follow-up on a causal AI position that will be brought to us by Chris Lamb. Really exciting stuff. And we do hope that you'll be able to join us for this online webinar. Go ahead and mark your calendars and do take a moment to complete our eval at the end. We want to know how we can serve you better. And we look forward to hearing from all of you. Thanks so much for attending this evening. Round of applause. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.